I become the best version of me, raised by certain degrees. They say I'm blurting disease, cause I spit anti-establishment. This is battleship, I'm calling your number and letter, and I only do it to make you better. Negative mindsets just won't let up, and I'm constantly battling my predecessors, cause I get too fed up. But the same when the same brings pain. Locks and chains reduce the potential of human brains. I'm too insane, at least it's what they label me. I'd rather be labeled as crazy than stuck in the matrix. I got Asia chasing cause I'm making these statements. I'm participating in the emancipation of a nation under interrogation. See my determination as you turn in these pages. I will never ever be degraded. They want me to dumb it down and say the industry ain't ready for too pure of a sound, for too pure of a heart, for too much empathy. I will give it all till I empty me. This is my manifest destiny. Preferably dropping bombs over melodies. You feel it heavily, you're telling me. Watch out. But it brings a resistance. Please don't miss this. Consequence vicious. We need to destroy the traumas. Go back and heal for a better tomorrow. Face the pain that you want to avoid. Stick out your chest and raise up your voice. I will not bend, I will not break. Stand in my place and I won't be swayed. Mark my words, lives will be saved. And even after I die, my legacy will remain. My emotions run amok, I'm out of luck. What the flying flip is going on? I say I'm a king, but I'm showing pawn. My logic feels intoxicated. No love left cause my heart's been raided. Feeling jaded, want me medicated. Feeling like a fish cause I'm hooked and baited. And I can't find peace. I become my own worst enemy. Sipping Hennessy, feeling dead in me. If my pain were a woman, gotta let her free. Let it go. But she's holding on with a grip of death. With a grip of death. The pain gets worse with every breath. I just wanna keep you in the dark so low. You feel it in your soul. Never see the light of day. You say, yeah, I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I don't like who I become. What have I done? I'm going numb, ain't having fun. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. Crazy is as crazy does. I catch myself trying to flirt with Lady Luck, but she just curves me. I'm worried, vision's blurry, feeling like death's coming early. You never get rid of me, even when you say that you're getting sick of me. Painted so vividly, making you sickening, feeling with misery, burning like Listerine. I spit on your grave, I'm taking control until you misbehave. The pain comes in waves, today I'm a slave. A trophy to gain, I'll put you on display. And laugh at your misfortune, laughing at your tears pouring, laughing at attempts of ignoring. Pieces foreign, the more you fight, the more you let me more in. This can't be life, but Doc help me out, I can no longer fight. I'm crying uncontrollably, I need a hold of me, what's life supposed to be? And I'm feeling suicidal, all my rivals got me quitting on survival. My heart needs to mend, I don't wanna kill myself, just want the pain to end. But this feels like an uphill battle, I see your misery with a broken paddle. I've journaled, have addictions, there's a hole in me cause something's missing. I'm in prison, in my mind, gotta heal what's been left behind. EMDR, whatever it takes, if I don't see change, I swear I'm gonna break. I just wanna keep you in the dark so low. You feel it in your soul. Never see the light of day. You say, yeah, I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I don't like who I become. What have I done? I'm going numb, ain't having fun. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. Keep hope alive. 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 Watch me do my word. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my word. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my word. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my word. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth. Watch you do my word. Watch you working harder than it ever did. Spitting from the hearts of people that feeling irrelevant. Spitting for the hell of it, embracing all the elements. Music, having content that'll challenge your intelligence. This ain't for the faint of the heart. Mature folks thinking that I'm way too smart. Too mature for my age, wanna put me in the grave. But I need a safe face, cause I'm running my race. Running my race, even overweight. But you see me overweight, cause I'm stealing off your plate. And I'm feeling so great, even though I make mistakes. Do whatever it takes to make winning the Mason race. But you will never bury me. Talking bad about the man is like heresy. Or fire like kerosene, apparently my words are like therapy. Watch you do my word. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my word. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my word. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my word. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth. Watch you do my word. I don't look like a rapper, what they look like, what they sound like, why they sound right. I'm too busy cruising in my lane, I don't need to buy fame. And this is why I came to put in work in the hearts of man. There's nothing harder than I like a martyr can. Watch you do my work, watch you do it well. Been through hell and I'm telling a story that's so compelling. It's got me screaming and yelling, negative is a repellent. And ain't no dreams I'm selling, cause I guess I know I'm rebelling. I work hard, you can tell, full of heart, raising hell. Cause you're gonna see me rock this scene like prophecy. On a lock and key, it's gotta be something to write home about, cause I work with pride, I got a fire inside. Watch you do my word. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my word. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my word. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my word. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth. Watch you do my word. Work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you do my word. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my word. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my word. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my word. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth. Watch you do my word. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my word. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my word. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my word. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth. Watch you do my word. Work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that. We have a problem. Uh-oh, there's a problem in the industry. You probably didn't think too many people would be into me. You want carbon copies? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint. It's a breaking point. Words so absurd that I'm breaking joints. Who's this brother in a suit jacket think he is? Don't he know that rappers ain't taking this serious? It's all about making hits, lyrics to the side. Humility isn't welcome cause we're talking about pride.
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome to Therapy Thursdays. So happy that you're here. I am your host, Marcus Alexander Velasquez. Therapy Thursdays is where we bring the therapist to you. I love that. This is an amazing resource for anyone to come on for free. I'm not getting paid for this. Our therapists aren't being paid for this. This is literally for you. If you're watching, yes, this is you. Take your finger, point to yourself, and say, "This is for me." This show is awesome. We discuss real therapy, mental health topics, and you get to hear from the professionals. These are licensed therapists that do this on a daily basis. So this isn't just reading from a textbook. This is not, I found a post online and on social media. I watched this TikTok that said something about mental health. You are hearing from the pros on this show. So I am so happy, honored to be the host for this show. I'm in a really good mood right now. I feel great. I feel like as soon as the live goes on, my energy goes up. So I love it. I'm happy that you're here. If you're joining us on YouTube, please like the video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. One of the great things about this platform is since we are streaming live, you get to submit your questions live. So that's a beautiful thing about the show. We have a live Q&A section every show. So if you have any questions either on today's topic or on any mental health topic in general, please do not be shy. Please be confident. Please type your questions, submit your questions to us through the live chat option on YouTube. But please ask away. Please take advantage of this resource. Please pick the beautiful brains of our guest therapists because it's an amazing access. So please take advantage of it. But yeah, a little bit of background about myself. The focus is not on me, but the whole reason I do this show, I am not a licensed therapist whatsoever, but I am a big fan of therapy. I've been in therapy about 5-6 years on and off, grown tremendously, love therapy, love digging deep, love asking the tough questions, love shining light in the dark places. I've grown tremendously and I love people. And anytime I come across a resource that can benefit people, I want to share it with as many people as possible, which is why I'm doing this show. So again, welcome to Therapy Thursdays. Before I bring my guest on today, I'm going to go over our disclaimer. So, this show is for informational purposes only. You are completely responsible for what you do with the information presented, and myself and all of our guests cannot be held liable for any misuse or misunderstanding of the information presented. Please always consult a trained mental health professional before making any decisions regarding treatment of yourself and others. So, our guest therapist tonight actually is pinch hitting because our original guest that we had for the show, for whatever reason, couldn't make it. But they tagged, not they tagged, see, I'm thinking social media. They sent an email and included this wonderful therapist on there, and he jumped on board and was willing to step up. So I appreciate him stepping up. If not, I would have had to cancel the episode. So I'm very happy that he is here with us. So please help me introduce as I bring on Sean Green. Sean, welcome to Therapy Thursdays.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How are you this evening?
I am doing wonderful. How about yourself, Marcus?
Great. Thank you again for being here. We're excited to have you. We will dive deep into the topic, which I didn't mention, by the way, for those watching. We were talking about emotional abuse today, and we're going to get deep into what that means. But for those who don't know you, which I'm sure you're well known, but for those who don't know you, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of background on yourself, how long have you been in practice, any specific specialties that you focus on? And my favorite question is, what got you interested to become a therapist in the first place?
So my name is Sean Michael Green. I'm currently licensed as an LPC. I'm doing telehealth fully with Bodhi Counseling and Consulting. A little bit about me. I like working with mood disorders like depression and anxiety. And I'm also really passionate about working with people of color, making sure that they get like the proper culturally sensitive treatment that they need. And I'm also gender affirming and sexuality affirming. I am an LGBTQIA ally as well as member. And I think it's important that these identities, these marginalized identities that a lot of people might have are validated, and that their role that they play in people's wellness is attended to.
Mm.
So yeah, gender and people of color and racial justice issues are very important to me. And what got me into therapy originally? Honestly, I I don't mean this in the way that this phrase is like typically like said, but I'm a people person. I love picking people's brains
Mm.
and examining what makes them tick, like their ups and downs, and what really getting at the nitty-gritty of as to, like what's bothering them. If you're familiar with video games or video game characters, I like to think of myself as a mental health white mage. The white mage tends to be like the healer
Oh, okay.
of the group. And that's what I like to think of myself. I always love being the white mage in video games. I like to think of myself as a healer. It's something that's fulfilling to me. Um and yeah, like in high school, I figured out that, oh, there's a study of like human behavior psychology. Oh wow, that's really awesome. And ever since then, like I've just been on this path.
Awesome. Great to hear. How long have you been with Bodhi?
I actually recently just got hired with them, so it's been a little over, I think like we're on like 2 months now.
Wow, you're brand new.
Yes.
Wow. Well, you're doing something right if they referred you to the episode. They trust you to represent them well. So that's
Right.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you for the background and thank you again for being here.
Mhm.
So let's dive into it. Today's topic, we were talking about emotional abuse. I know that's a very wide topic and so many things can fall underneath that title. I always want to make sure that we are using terms appropriately because so many terms can be misused. Or assumptions are made about it, or just they're used in the wrong way. So I want to make sure we always define our terms. So if you can, please define emotional abuse for us.
Well, simply put, emotional abuse is pretty much any behavior that negatively impacts another person's emotional wellness.
Mm,
This could manifest in different ways, such as being controlling or manipulative. Typically, it's behavior within like a relationship, but it can be any kind of relationship, like a partner or a friend or like a parent, any other family member. It's a person within any relationship who displays patterns of behavior that might emotionally harm you, such as manipulation, guilt tripping, emotional blackmail, and all
mm.
sorts of other examples.
Wow, emotional blackmail. I've never heard that term before. Thanks for teaching me something
Mm.
new.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like are there I told you I was going to come up with some questions on the spot. Sometimes things just pop in my mind. Are there instances where somebody may be going through something that's not technically emotional abuse, but they might label it as emotional abuse?
Absolutely. And honestly, labeling it is kind of, it's depending on like the victim, I guess in this case. Typically I think it would be most useful to categorize emotional abuse as a pattern of behavior.
Mm,
So if a partner decides to guilt trip one time, if this isn't like a common occurrence, we might not categorize that as emotional abuse because it's a one-time thing. And everybody has flaws, right? Everybody can be a little bit like controlling at times, or might express like feelings of like jealousy or other signs of emotional abuse. But typically, I think it's most useful if we categorize it as a pattern, something that happens regularly.
yeah, that makes sense. And you're right. There are a lot of different relationships out there that emotional abuse can stem from. So you can also include employer and employee. So supervisors, managers can
Mhm.
emotionally abuse their employees, people in power, pastors, other religious leaders. So there's a lot of different scenarios where emotional abuse can take place.
100%.
So what are different types of emotional abuse?
Well, unfortunately, there is no shortage of different types. It can come in the form of like bullying. So even like kids, like at school, like harassment. It can look like criticism or insults if you constantly experience, name calling.
Mm,
Um, there's shaming.
mm,
Feeling embarrassed, like if you make a mistake. Instead of, compassion or forgiveness, that's met with, judgment, or permanently being branded as like, oh, like you're a liar, or like, oh, you're unreliable.
mm.
um or having that mistake aired out to the world, like if you have like a friend group or members of your family, that being broadcast to them when it should just be a private affair.
Well,
A popular one that I tend to see thrown around a lot in social media is gaslighting.
mm,
um and that's basically where the other person basically tries to convince you that you're crazy, like you're not making sense, like you believe something is the case, but they're trying to convince you that you're crazy. It absolutely isn't the case, making you doubt your reality. When in actuality, you're 100% correct. It is the case, but they're using manipulative tactics to convince you that it isn't the case, and that can
mm.
obviously be very harmful.
Absolutely, yeah. I just thought of something, and I'm really curious to find out your answer for this question. Is
Mhm.
it possible to emotionally abuse ourselves? Because you talked about stuff like
Mm.
shaming, or calling someone a liar or one behavior, and you just label the person as that. I know a big part of the human experience is self-talk and how we talk to ourselves. So considering that, is it possible to emotionally abuse ourselves, whether knowingly or unknowingly?
Hmm. I've honestly never gave that question
Yes.
any consideration.
Yeah, it's
So
good.
yeah, no, thank you for asking that.
Absolutely.
But I I'd have to say probably yeah,
Yeah.
because if we would consider, I would personally consider self-harm, such as, like cutting yourself or something like that. I would consider that physical abuse.
Yeah.
And I would consider that something obviously like you do to yourself. So by that logic, yeah, I guess you would consider it possible to emotionally abuse ourselves, because we can, like you said, like we have this self-talk and it can be very self-critical. We can beat ourselves up. We can convince ourselves that our reality isn't the case. We can deny our own reality.
Yep.
We can bully ourselves, be hypercritical of ourselves. So yeah, I'd absolutely think so.
I don't know if I heard it or I read it on social media, but this quote was aimed towards parents, and it said, "Parents, be careful how you speak to your children because it becomes their inner voice." Have you heard that before?
Yes, yes.
So to me, that makes a lot of sense, especially talking about emotional abuse, because if we had a parental figure in our life and they are, emotionally abusing us, calling us names, if that becomes our own internal voice, well, then we'll just repeat that behavior, and then we can possibly start to believe it, call ourselves names, put ourselves down. So yeah, parents out there, please be careful how you speak to your children, because it does follow them for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Sean, if you can let us know, what are some signs of emotional abuse?
Signs. Well, one thing that I will say is, and something that you just said actually like made me think to say this. You just said that, emotional abuse is something that we can do to ourselves, knowingly or unknowingly. And I'd
Yeah.
also like to apply that to if it's somebody else that's
Mm,
committing the emotional abuse. Just because they might be unintentionally emotionally abusive, that does not take away from the fact that they are
yep.
being emotionally abusive. So I don't think intentionality takes away from the behavior or
Mm,
how harmful it is.
yep.
So I don't think that intentionality should take away from what those signs are. And some of those signs, like if you feel, a big one is if you find yourself feeling really anxious or nervous, being around this particular person, if whenever you think about them, you might find yourself feeling like lower in self-confidence or self-esteem, if you're constantly feeling confused, frustrated, or
Mm,
misunderstood, and if you notice that all these negative emotions are tied to this person, chances are that they're displaying a pattern of emotionally abusive behavior towards you.
Mm.
So I think it's really important to be in tune with the self
Yeah.
and checking in with yourself, like what am I feeling right now? What is this other person making me feel, and how do I feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a comment from YouTube from Bren B. She said that's so true. So she was agreeing with what you were saying. While you were talking, made me think of something else too. Are there tactics? So some people can be the abuser and either not know it or not being willing to admit to it. Are there any tactics or ways that we can talk to an abuser to help them realize, hey, either me or someone else, you're putting them through some emotional abuse? Like, is there a way to pierce that, whatever it is, pride, arrogance? Is there a way to best explain or help them understand from somebody else's point of view, like, hey, this is real emotional abuse, whether you see it or not? This person is getting emotionally abused and that's how they feel.
Hmm. Absolutely. It is kind of tricky because there are tactics, but there are also circumstances in which those tactics won't work.
Mm,
And that's a big thing with emotionally abusive people. They don't care about the other person's feelings.
yep.
If they express that, hey, like you violated a boundary, or you've embarrassed me, or you hurt me in some capacity, they're not fixated on that. The
Mm,
other person, the one that's doing the abusing, they're more interested in how they can be controlling and manipulative.
mm,
Um, but it is possible, and hopefully, it is like that person who is doing the emotional abuse would be open to a conversation about their emotional abuse. So I would say a major thing is to be very honest
mm,
and to not sugarcoat your feelings when expressing them to this person,
yeah.
but also making sure not to be antagonistic.
Mm,
Because they could actually use that as fuel, like, oh, look, you're attacking me, you're offending me, like, oh, you're calling me a liar.
right.
So being sure to be very, I guess the best term I would use is neutral with your language, sticking to the facts. Like, you've displayed behaviors X, Y, and Z.
Mm,
It's made me feel this type of way. I'm expressing this to you. Being sure to be, again, uh, as as um as warm, I guess. That might be weird to say, but as warm as you can possibly be, but to make sure that that doesn't detract or be self-invalidating
yeah.
towards your feelings.
Yeah. Absolutely. I keep thinking of stuff on the spot. Like, this is a great topic. What would your advice be for someone who honestly is torn? So they believe they're being emotionally abused, but the abuser, like you said, is gaslighting them and telling them, "Oh, you're just too sensitive" or whatever. So they question themselves and they're like, "Well, am I too sensitive? Am I overreacting to this?" What would your advice be to someone who's kind of stuck in the middle ground?
Yeah, that is a very tricky situation. I think a big thing always is getting like a second pair of eyes, or is like a second opinion.
That's good.
So turning to a support group. And by support group, I mean like your friends or your loved ones in your life, like asking them and letting them know how you've been feeling about the situation.
Mm,
Um, I think confiding in a trusted other is really important, especially when your reality is being questioned. Obviously, therapy is another great space where
yep.
you can process those emotions and talk to somebody about that. Um, but yeah, I think a big thing is that it ultimately is up to you. If this person, if you're in a situation where you're torn, there really isn't a right or wrong answer. It's based on what you determine is best for yourself. So if
That's
you
good.
value this other person, if you genuinely want to make the attempt to work with them, uh, and talk to them about identifying their emotionally abusive behavior, that is absolutely your choice. If you want to leave that relationship or distance yourself, whether that be again familial, romantic relationship or any other kind of relationship, that is also a perfectly valid choice. And again, talking with friends and talking about like what those next steps could look like, I also think that that's a wonderful choice. So it really is like you have the power to decide what you do in the situation.
Awesome. I would add to that to honor your feelings. You feel a certain way for a reason, so don't ignore them. Don't let someone else convince you otherwise. Your feelings are there for a reason, so trust them, and yeah, don't ignore them. I had loved that you what you said earlier that it's best to define emotional abuse as a pattern of behavior as opposed to one off here or there. Like, oh well, maybe they didn't mean this, or maybe maybe they did, but if it's constantly over and over again, it's like, okay, this is just bad behavior that needs to be addressed. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, I know emotional abuse can. You talked about physical abuse before, and I've heard and I've experienced that emotional abuse can leave scars that last so much longer than physical scars. So, I'd like to talk about what are some of the effects of emotional abuse.
Yeah. Emotional abuse, a lot of people might not really think this, but emotional abuse, especially when it is like a long-term pattern, can have a lot of long-lasting traumatic
Mm,
effects on a person. If you might find yourself having like a negative self-concept, whereas you find yourself again, like your self-talk is completely changed. Like even if you or when you decide to get out of that relationship, you can find that the way that you perceive yourself, the way that you feel about yourself is completely changed in a way where you're constantly invalidating your own feelings. Again, I think, and this is like a recurring thing I'm sure we'll get to throughout this discussion, but honoring your own feelings,
yeah.
and making sure that you aren't being invalidating to yourself. But oftentimes, as you said, like a parent uh negatively speaking to their child, that can have that effect. And so yeah, having negative self-talk, that's one of the major effects that um emotional abuse can have, as well as them unfortunately becoming emotional abusers themselves,
Mm,
displaying some of those same behaviors because that has been normalized for them because they've experienced it for maybe an extended period of time.
yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I the the mindset behind my next question is I told you before we went on the air that I want to make this show as practical as possible. So, although we're talking about real deep stuff, I want it to be practical so that anybody tuning in can understand it. So, like for me, when I was going on my therapy journey, it was therapy in itself can be tough because we're digging deep and addressing our issues, but for
Yes.
me it was particularly rough in the beginning because I had no one to kind of hold my hand and walk me through the process. So it's not like I had family members who had gone through therapy and I can ask them and they can tell me what to expect. Like it was just all me. So that being the case, like there was times where it's very discouraging because I'm like, is there healing ever going to happen? Because I'm just, unleashing all these
Mhm.
stored up emotions and pain. It's like, what's happening? And it's really hard to fight a fight or run a race if you don't even know if a finish line exists. So I say
Mhm.
all that because I want to ask certain questions that our audience might be thinking that will help open them up to the world of therapy and,
Of course.
open them up to hope overall. So
Mhm.
that all that being said, and this may be a simple answer, but can we heal from emotional abuse? And I think that's a very important question because for those who have gone through so much, maybe they're telling themselves, "Oh, this is just my life. This is who I am. This is how the rest of my life is going to be." So, can we heal from emotional abuse?
Um, yeah, that is a very important question, and it is my honest opinion that everybody has the capacity to heal from emotional abuse.
Mm,
Now, of course, the journey for healing from that emotional abuse can look different for everybody,
right.
and it unfortunately can be very difficult for some people. Again, like people who don't have support networks, people who don't have anybody that they can turn to really like help them through this. But I absolutely do think that it is possible to heal, because as far as I'm concerned, the key component that people need to heal is a sense of self-worth. And I
Mm.
think that is something that everybody, no matter how difficult, is able to instill within themselves with enough love and enough time that they give to themselves. So I absolutely think that healing is possible.
Wow, that was a great point that you said about self-worth. I love that.
Mm.
That makes so much sense. It's true because if you have self-worth, if you know who you are, then what people have to say about you, one, if you know yourself, you know that no, you're lying because that's not who I am. And
Mhm.
then if you're self-confident enough and know your self-worth, you have no problem walking away from people who are not serving, your best interest. So that was really good. Thank you
Right.
for saying that. Your self-worth, that's absolutely a big part of it.
Mhm.
So if somebody's watching and they may think they're being emotionally abused or know that they're being emotionally abused, what can we do if we're the person being emotionally abused?
Well, once someone has identified that they're being emotionally abused, there's really one of two options. You can try and stay within that relationship and figure out what you want to do in terms of approaching that person. If you want to, work with them and communicate with them about how you've been feeling. Um, if you've tried that and you've found those efforts to be ineffective, then maybe you'd consider working on an exit plan. And depending on your circumstances, that can vary in difficulty because maybe you're in a relationship where you're financially dependent on
Mm,
your partner, or this is a parent being emotionally abusive, and you either don't want to mess up the relationship, or it wouldn't be financially feasible for you to mess up that relationship or
mm,
distance yourself from the relationship. So working on a plan to distance yourself, setting boundaries is really important. Again, making sure that you're understanding how you're feeling and validating yourself, and recognizing that no matter what the other person thinks, even if your efforts to communicate your feelings to them go unheard, that
mm,
your feelings are still valid. That just
mm,
because they invalidated your feelings, that doesn't mean that your feelings are invalid. So yeah, it really boils down to what you want to do, what you feel is most comfortable and helpful to you. Like I said, there isn't really a right answer. Um, if oftentimes I will say chances are that people who do display like long-term patterns of emotional abuse tend not to be receptive towards communication. And it isn't your job. That's another thing that I should say. It is not your job to fix or help somebody else work through their emotional abusiveness. That's not on you. That's not your responsibility. If you want to do that, if you find that helpful, great. Don't feel obligated. You have no need. Your priority should be to yourself and your well-being.
mm. It's a good point. Yeah. You actually started going into my next question. So I'll just ask that right now. How can we help someone we believe is being emotionally abused, if we can help at all?
Mhm. Well, I think a major, like, so you the question is if we personally know someone who is a victim.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is affection and validation and
Mm,
and care and support, being there, letting that person know, like, very explicitly and verbally, like, I care about you, like, I'm here for you, I love
mm,
you. Being very vocal about your support, because chances are they probably need to hear that because of what they've experienced. So helping them plan, asking them what they want to do, I think is important. Not just assuming that, oh, you should leave. I think that's like a knee jerk reaction that people have, like, oh my
yeah.
god, you need to leave that relationship, and that's a totally valid response. It's just that that isn't that's your response. That's not their response. That's
Yeah.
not their feelings. So making sure that we are considerate of the victim, of that person, and making sure that we prioritize their needs and helping them achieve what they want, whether it be to stay, if it is the case that they want to stay, helping them set boundaries or coping mechanisms, working with them to make that relationship less painful. And if they do want to leave, great. Let's help them do that.
Awesome. I've said this before. I want to say it again just to reiterate it because I believe it's truly important. We can never want better for someone than they want for themselves. So even if we see someone in pain and we have the solution to their pain, if that person isn't ready to receive that information, or they haven't even acknowledged the situation that they're in, and you try to come in and, on a white horse and save them, you can actually do damage to your relationship with that person, because you are addressing something that they may not be ready to address. And if you keep pushing it and addressing it and the person's not ready to address it, you can actually create distance in your relationship. So yes, you should love your neighbor, you should take care of people, be empathetic, sympathetic towards people, but you also have to respect people's free will. And if they don't see an issue, or they're not ready to heal or hear your message, whatever it may be, as much as it hurts you, you have to respect their free will. They are their own person. They have their own choices. They have to live with the consequences of their choices. Again, even if it hurts you, but once they're ready, they'll reach out for help. Once they're ready, they'll ask questions. And then that's when you can, go gung ho and let it rip. But in the meantime, like you said, you can talk to people, ask them a few questions, maybe to get into the topic. But if they're resistant, they're pushing back, they're saying, no, you're crazy, you have to leave it be, unfortunately, because that person has to want the healing for themselves. I just want to remind everyone that if you're watching live, please feel free to type in any questions or comments that you may have. We would love to get to them before the end of our show. So in the meantime, obviously this show is Therapy Thursdays, so we promote therapy here. So can you give us and guide us through the process of how a therapist can help someone who has been emotionally abused, as
Yeah,
opposed to talking to a friend or a family member?
right. Yeah, so therapists can help in a number of different ways. A big thing, and this would be very relevant for someone who did choose to stay in a relationship, or at the very least isn't ready at the
Mm,
moment to leave the relationship, is working on coping mechanisms. So being able to identify stress, what that looks like, what that feels like. Um, I think because of the effects of emotional abuse, it can be easy for people to lose touch
mm,
with how they feel. So teaching people who have been emotionally abused, or rather reteaching them how to be in tune with how they're feeling, and to reconnect them with activities that they might like doing, like hobbies or other things that they might want to do when they're feeling stressed out, or when they're feeling like hurt or invalidated. um Another big thing is working on positive self-talk, something that is probably impaired as a result of emotional abuse.
mm,
So maybe doing strength identification training, like working with that person, identifying their strengths. Everybody has strengths. It might not feel like people do when they're being emotionally abused, but they do.
mm,
And so being able to pinpoint what makes someone special, or just things that they like about themselves, is super important in being able to create a sense of positivity when examining the self. Psychoeducation is another standard thing that I think is really important. Educating themselves on, like, yeah, this is actually an example of emotional abuse, because some people might not be able to fully identify like the entire like scope of what they've experienced as emotional abuse, when in actuality it extended far beyond what they've understood to be. So those are just a few examples.
yeah. Sean, can you help us understand and explain the difference of going to therapy and having a recurring relationship with a therapist, as opposed to just talking to your best friend, or just someone else who's not licensed, who's not a professional in this area? Can you let us know the difference? And the reason I'm asking that is because, I've heard from several people, several reasoning slash excuses for why people don't go to therapy. Therapy is for, crazy people, or I'm not that bad, or, I talk to my friends, or the gym is my therapy. And I really want people to understand the difference between seeing an actual licensed, credentialed professional and just doing activities on your own or talking to your friends. So can you let us know a little bit about the actual details of how a therapist helps someone as opposed to just talking to a friend?
Absolutely. And the way I see it, there are really, and I'm sure if you ask any other therapist, they'll give you different answers. But I would say, like, across the board, universally speaking, there's really two main elements of therapy that you wouldn't find in just talking to a friend. And the first thing is the the therapist's job. The therapist's job is literally to work with you to work on your wellness,
Mm,
which means that every minute that they're in session with you, their job is to work with you. It's because with a friend, they might, they might interrupt you, they might divert the conversation, they might make it about them. They might give you advice, and that advice might be helpful. But what makes a therapist is that it is literally their job to be dedicated. It
mm,
isn't just a byproduct of conversation. It is the fact that that is the reason why they are here with you. You, not them, not anybody else. It's you. And the second thing that I would say is the environment. Therapy is a space where at least you should feel safe and you should feel comfortable
mm,
being open and honest with everything. And the great thing about the therapeutic environment is that the therapist is completely separate from the rest of your life.
mm.
Therapists are literally legally obligated to not talk about anything
Wow.
that you say in therapy, uh, barring like a few exceptions, like risk of like self harm, elder child abuse, etc. But barring a few exceptions, they can't talk about anything that you talk about in therapy. So having that confidentiality, that safety, that you can pretty much say whatever, and it'll be between you and that therapist. Because obviously, if you tell like a trusted loved one, obviously like you trust them, but there is still that risk that they might tell somebody. There's still that connection that this is like a real person that I might have my own issues with. So being able to have a space where you can kind of take a break from having to worry about stressing somebody else out, or
Mm.
worry about what you tell somebody else like affecting other facets of your life. Therapy is an environment where you can have an empathic understanding of what you're going through, separate from all of that.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. What resources are available to people who may not necessarily have insurance or have enough money to afford therapy? What resources are available to people?
There are a number of different, for crises. There's like a number of different hotlines. There's crisis text line. There's the National Suicide Hotline. Um, that can be helpful. A lot of therapists do sliding scales. For people who don't have insurance, you can find therapists for. I actually saw just I think it was today or yesterday, like a therapist was doing people who didn't have insurance for, I think, like $30 per
Wow.
session, which that is absolutely like amazing that they're
Yeah.
able to provide that. That's very cheap. And so yeah, there's like so many different therapists that will do a number of different prices. But yeah, like college resource centers, if you're like a student, looking into your college, because I'll I'm kind of salty about it because in my experience as a student, I've just stopped being a student recently.
Mm,
But oftentimes like colleges and like other like scholarly institutions will actually not talk up just how valuable, because I just graduated from Roosevelt University.
nice. Congrats.
Um Thank you. And a big thing there was that therapy was actually included, like, for free.
Wow.
The school had, like, a therapist, and it was included in, like, the student plan, like, being a student. And a lot of other schools do it where just because you're a student, you are entitled to free and accessible therapy.
Wow.
So, yeah, like, the resources are very abundant.
Very cool. Yeah. So, for those of you interested in therapy and maybe you feel like money or insurance is a hindrance, there are definitely resources out there. I know there are some places that do offer therapy for free. Just make sure you do some research on the places, make sure they're credible, make sure other people have actually gone to them and had positive experiences. We live in the world of the internet, so you can go on Yelp. Or, actually, I wonder if therapists get rated on Yelp. That's an interesting question.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I will
Hmm.
look that up after this show. But yeah, if anybody's using or thinking that money or insurance is a hindrance, there are other options. That's cool. I didn't even know if you're a college student. Many college campuses offer therapy for free, so please take advantage of that. That's an amazing resource. I know several employers will offer. Like the first few sessions of therapy for free. I think one of my friends gets like 10 sessions for free or something like that. So, if you're working and you have an employer, reach out to your HR department and ask them if they have any resources for therapy. Sometimes they'll have telehealth, or they might just pay for legit maybe your first 5 or 10 therapy sessions. So, you have not because you asked not. So reach out and ask them and see what they have available to you.
Mhm.
Awesome. Sean, you have been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for being here. Did you have any last minute words that you wanted to share with us, either on this topic or anything on your mind right now?
Hmm. Um, I guess just to stress the point, I think it's important that people maintain a sense of self-worth and a sense of self-respect,
Mm,
even outside of obviously the scope of emotional abuse. I think it's important to recognize that it's okay to feel upset. It's okay to feel upset about the things that someone might have said to you, or behavior that people have displayed towards you. It's okay to feel upset about that, and it's okay to be okay with yourself. Like you're okay, you're worth it just for being you. And along those same lines, if you find yourself feeling inadequate or feeling like you want to change things about yourself, I think it's not only important to practice self-acceptance, accepting yourself as who you are, but I think self-acceptance is required
mm,
to change yourself. I think wanting to change yourself or wanting to improve yourself, I don't think that is against self-acceptance. I think that's an expression of self-acceptance because you love and respect yourself so much that you want to see yourself be better than what you are currently. And that doesn't say that what you are currently is bad or anything necessarily, but envisioning self-actualization and envisioning self-fulfillment, I
mm.
think is a very powerful expression of self-worth and of self-love.
Awesome. Well said. Bren B is back. She put a comment again saying great info. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I threw the website for Bodhi Counseling on there. Sean, are you accepting new clients?
Yeah, I am currently accepting new clients. I'm currently in network with U of I Student Insurance
Oh, cool.
and Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm doing fully telehealth Tuesdays through Thursdays. So yeah.
Cool. Can people reach you through that website?
Yeah, absolutely. If you there should be like if you go to the page, and there should be somewhere on the page where it says schedule an appointment. And yeah, you can either send an email in or call, and we'll get you scheduled for, well, first a free consultation just to see if therapy is, right for you. And if it is, yeah, then we'll get to therapy.
Beautiful. I love it. If you guys are interested in attending formal therapy, please reach out to Sean and his team. You may reach them at the website on your screen, which is bodhicounseling.care. So interesting, the end of websites now. You have .care and all these dots. It's wonderful. Awesome. Yeah. So if you guys are interested in Sean or anyone else on his team, please check out their website. Sign up, like you said, for a free consultation and go from there. I want to wrap up with our disclaimer one more time. This show is for informational purposes only. You are completely responsible for what you do with the information presented, and myself and all of our guests cannot be held liable for any misuse or misunderstanding of the information presented. Please always consult a trained mental health professional before making any decisions regarding treatment of yourself and others. Sean, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you again for stepping up when our other guest therapist was unable to make it. So we really appreciate you being here. You are always welcome back. So if you'd like, I can email a link to our online spreadsheet with our future shows. And if you see any topics that you'd like to sign up for, you're free to do so. But you're always welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And then for everyone else, thank you for being here. We're going to wrap this up. We will be back next week and every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time to discuss another mental health topic and therapy topic and hear from another wonderful licensed guest therapist. So thank you guys for being here and have a good night.
Work, watch you do my